My ex told people I was crazy, so I calmly emailed his lies to the one person who mattered. I sat there with my laptop open, the little arrow hovering over the send button, my finger resting on the trackpad like it weighed 10 kilos. My tea had gone cold next to me. It was 11:47 p.m., and my whole apartment was quiet except for the fridge humming and the occasional car going past outside. His name glared back at me from the screenshots I'd attached, stupid blue bubbles where he'd called me psycho, unstable, a manipulative bitch in one thread. And then in another, bragged to his mate about how easy it was to spin the story so everyone thinks she's nuts. The cursor blinked in the body of the email I'd reread 6 times. The subject line was simple: I think you deserve the full story. My chest was tight, but my hands didn't shake when I finally clicked. The whoosh sound of the email sending was so soft, but it felt louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. We'd been broken up for just over a year when I did it. Long enough that people had stopped saying, "Have you heard from him?" in that cautious voice, but not long enough that my body didn't still clench whenever I walked past the bar where he liked to hold court. I was 29, single again, in a tiny rented one-bedroom that smelled like eucalyptus because I kept overdoing it with the cleaning spray whenever my anxiety kicked off. My ex, let's call him Luke, 33, had a new girlfriend, Hannah, who I only knew in the way you know people through curated square photos and mutual friends' comments. She was the one person, besides me, whose opinion about what actually happened still mattered, because she was living in the version of the story I'd barely crawled out of, because she was the person he was now telling I was crazy as a preemptive strike in case she ever started connecting the dots. I guess to understand why I hit send, you need the backstory, or at least my version of it, which, if you'd asked Luke at any point in the last 18 months, he'd tell you is a delusional narrative my anxious brain made up to justify my own toxic behavior. His words, not mine. We met at work. Of course we did. It was one of those open plan offices where everyone knows everyone's business, and the coffee machine is basically a confessional. I was an admin at a mid-sized marketing agency in Sydney. He was one of the account managers. Charming, loud, the kind of guy who knew everyone's name within 2 days of starting. The first time he talked to me, I was standing at the printer, whacking the side of it because it had jammed for the 3rd time that morning. "Careful," he said, leaning against the filing cabinet with a cup of coffee in his hand. "If you hit it any harder, it's going to start asking for a safe word." I snorted before I could stop myself. "You say that like it doesn't already," I shot back. He grinned. "I'm Luke," he said, sticking out his hand. "I've been here 3 business days, and you're the first person I've seen bully the printer more than me. I'm impressed." He was funny, quick. He made my mundane Tuesday feel less like I was slowly dissolving into the office carpet. We started having little chats at the coffee machine. He brought me a donut just because on a Friday. He asked about the book I was reading at lunch. At the time, I'd just come out of a very boring, very safe relationship with a guy who thought quality time meant sitting next to each other, scrolling our phones in silence. So, Luke's attention felt like stepping into sunlight after being in a dim room for too long. Our first date wasn't supposed to be a date. A bunch of people from work were going for drinks after a big pitch, and somehow everyone else bailed, and it ended up just the 2 of us left at a sticky table in a pub on Crown Street, talking about everything and nothing while he made the bartender laugh so much she gave us free fries. He asked if I wanted to split an Uber home. I said yes. In the back seat, he tilted his head and looked at me. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, which, honestly, I appreciated. Consent is hot. I said yes to that too. Things moved fast after that. He texted all the time. He brought me coffee in the mornings with stupid little notes written on the lids. For the cutest crazy cat lady in training, after I showed him a photo of my rescue cat, Noodle. He learned my coffee order before my boss did. When I offhandedly mentioned I'd never seen The Godfather, he turned up at my place the next night with pizza and a USB loaded with the entire trilogy. It felt like a movie. I know how cringe that sounds, but it did. He made me feel like I was the main character in a life that had previously felt very background extra. The first time he called me crazy, it sounded like a compliment. We'd been seeing each other for about 3 months. He hadn't officially moved in, but his toothbrush was in my bathroom and his sneakers were by my door more nights than not. One Saturday, we had tickets to a gig and he rocked up at mine an hour late, sweaty and breathless, mumbling something about traffic. You live 10 minutes away, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and failing. I'd been sitting in full makeup and an outfit I'd stress changed out of twice watching the clock. Yeah, but there was this last-minute thing. Did you forget? I asked. He frowned. Calm down, babe. Don't go all crazy on me, it was just traffic. The word made me freeze. I'm not crazy, I'm annoyed, I said. We had a plan. He laughed, grabbed my waist, kissed my temple. Relax, he said. Crazy in a good way. Like, hot crazy. You care. It's cute. My stomach did a weird flip that I ignored. He was late. People are late. I told myself not to be dramatic. That little pattern, him minimizing, me over-explaining, then telling myself not to be dramatic, would become the wallpaper of our relationship. He wasn't a cartoon villain. That's the thing I keep coming back to. If he'd hit me, screamed at me, cheated blatantly from day one, maybe it would have been easier to clock what was happening. Instead, it was 100 micro-cuts. He borrowed my car just this once and brought it back with a new dent and a joke. He forgot to pay me back for things. He rescheduled my birthday dinner to go to the footy with his mate because the tickets were expensive, but we can celebrate you anytime. He'd tell me I was beautiful and then compare my body to some influencer on Instagram as motivation. He'd tell stories about his crazy exes, the one who stalked him by apparently asking why his phone was on Do Not Disturb every Friday night, the one who was obsessed with labels because she wanted to know if they were exclusive. All of this is context, because later, when he started recycling the word crazy for me, it came with the weight of all those stories. He wasn't just saying I was overreacting. He was putting me in a long, shameful line of women who apparently couldn't handle him. About a year in, my mental health did actually wobble. Not because of him specifically, at least not at first. Work was chaotic, my mom had a health scare, my best friend moved interstate. I started having trouble sleeping, lying awake at 3 a.m. with my brain buzzing, stomach clenched. I'd cry for no reason and then get annoyed at myself for being ungrateful, because on paper, things were fine. I saw my GP, she listened, nodded, suggested I see a psychologist. She also put me on a low-dose SSRI. I remember staring at the script, feeling weirdly like I'd failed at something, but after about 6 weeks, the constant buzzing in my chest eased. I slept. I laughed at memes again. Luke's initial reaction was surprisingly supportive. He drove me to my first therapy appointment. He texted afterwards, "Proud of you for doing the work." He started coming out with these faux woke lines. "We stand a queen who works on her mental health," he'd joke to his friends, rubbing my shoulder. I'd roll my eyes, but inside I was relieved. He wasn't judging me. He wasn't like those guys online who made jokes about crazy girls on meds. Not yet. The first time he weaponized it was during an argument about his phone. Classic, I know. We'd been together almost 2 years. I was at his place, sitting on the couch while he showered. His phone lit up on the coffee table. A message preview popped up from someone named T with a heart emoji. I didn't touch it, but my stomach dropped. He came out in a towel, saw me looking at the screen, and snatched the phone up. "Privacy, babe," he said, half joking, half not. "Who's T?" I asked. He rolled his eyes. "You're doing that thing," he said. "What thing?" "The crazy overthinking thing. It's just Tom." "Tom has a heart emoji now?" He sighed. "It's a joke. Jesus, Anna, this is what your therapist was talking about, you know. The anxiety, the catastrophizing." I felt my face burn. "My therapist said it's normal to want transparency in a relationship," I said. "She said that's a reasonable boundary." "Oh my God, are you seriously bringing your therapist into this?" He laughed. "You're spiraling. This is what I mean when I say you go crazy over nothing." I knew logically that asking about a mystery heart in your partner's phone is not crazy, but hearing him use language from my therapy sessions against me, it short-circuited something. I ended up apologizing for being insecure. Spoiler, T was a woman from his gym. I found that out 6 months later in the worst way. It was a Thursday. I know that because Thursdays used to be our cheap movie night. 2-for-1 tickets, crappy popcorn, the whole thing. He canceled that week, said he was sick. I sent him a feel-better text, stayed home, watched a stupid cooking show in my pajamas with noodle on my lap. My friend Zara was the one who sent the photo. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed. Zara, isn't this Luke? Attached was a blurry Insta story screenshot from a bar in Newtown. In the background, unmistakably, was Luke. Not sick at all, hand on some girl's waist, kissing her neck. My first reaction was denial so strong it was almost funny. Maybe it's old? Maybe it's someone who looks like him? Maybe he's filming something? Then my body did this horrible cold hot wave thing and my toothbrush fell into the sink. I called him. No answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. Now my anxiety had something real to chew on, and it went to town. I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every "you're overreacting" and "you're being paranoid." He finally texted at 7:13 a.m. "Hey babe, sorry I crashed early, feeling rough. Talk later, X." I stared at that text for a full minute. Then, hands weirdly steady, I sent him Zara's screenshot. "Is this your medicine?" I typed. The 3 dots came up almost immediately, then disappeared, then came back. "Wow," he finally wrote. "You really are stalking me, huh?" Something in me snapped then. I wrote, "Explain." He didn't. Not really. He came over that evening all faux offended. "You got your friend to spy on me," he said, like that was the issue. "You've gone full psycho, Anna. This is what I tell people about. You're obsessed." "You lied," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "You told me you were sick." "I was," he said. "Then Tom convinced me to go out. I didn't want you to. Spiral, so I didn't say anything." "And the girl?" He shrugged. "It was nothing. You were kissing her. It was a stupid mistake. I was drunk. I thought you of all people would understand making mistakes when you're not in a good headspace." And there it was again. My mental health used as a get-out-of-jail-free card for him and a weapon against me. I wish I could say I kicked him out then and there. I didn't. I cried. I said I needed space. He called me dramatic. He cried too. He said he'd been struggling, that I hadn't noticed because I was wrapped up in my own anxiety, that he felt lonely, that he thought I was pulling away. "I love you," he said over and over. "You know I love you. Don't throw us away over one stupid kiss." I agreed to couples therapy. It sounds so dumb writing that, like agreeing to go to the dentist with someone who chipped your tooth on purpose. But I still loved him. I wanted to believe that this version of him, the sad, remorseful one, was the real Luke, and the lying, minimizing one was just a glitch. Therapy was a whole other mindfuck. We found a counselor through some online directory. Her office smelled like incense, and she had that soft voice that makes you instinctively want to open up and cry. I went in ready to talk about boundaries and trust and how his minimizing made me feel, insane. Luke went in ready to perform. He talked about his rough childhood, which, okay, he did have some stuff. His fear of abandonment, how hard it was for him when I started on meds because he didn't recognize me. "Sometimes," he said, looking earnestly at the counselor, "I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with her anxiety, like I can't do anything right. I know I messed up with that girl. I'm not excusing it. But I was lonely. I felt like I'd lost my girlfriend to her mental health." The counselor turned to me. "Do you think he's lost you to your mental health?" she asked gently. I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded in on myself and said, I don't know." After 3 sessions, Luke decided she was too negative and that reliving all this stuff was making things worse. We stopped going. From there, things got uglier in smaller, pettier ways. He started calling me crazy more often. At first it was, "You're driving yourself crazy," when I double-checked something, but then it escalated to, "You're actually insane," when I found a flirty DM on his Instagram, or, "This is why people think you're mental," when I cried after a fight. He told his friends I'd lost it when I went through a bad patch and had to up my medication. I know because one of them, drunk at a party, said, "You're actually all right, you know? Luke makes it sound like you're this bunny boiler." Bunny boiler. Like that old movie. Like I was a punchline. The breakup itself was weirdly anticlimactic. No big explosion. Just erosion. He moved out of his share house into a flat closer to the city to be near work. I'd been staying there most weekends. One night, after he'd snapped at me for leaving a hair tie on the coffee table, "This place is turning into a mental ward," I heard myself say, "I don't think this is working." He blinked. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I think we're breaking up with each other," I said. "You clearly don't like me very much." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Wow," he said, "you're really going to throw away 3 years because you're having a bad brain day?" We kind of fizzled. 2 days later, he texted, "If this is what you really want, I'll respect it," as if he hadn't been pushing me towards that cliff for months. I cried for a week. Then I did all the breakup things you're supposed to do. Deleted old photos. Okay, hid them in a folder. Blocked him on social. Then unblocked, then reblocked because I am weak and nosy. Went back to my psychologist. Bought new sheets. Got a fringe and regretted it. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. People break up. Life goes on. But life kept looping back to him via other people. We worked in the same industry, which is basically 3 degrees of separation at best. A mutual colleague pulled me aside at a networking thing. "Hey, look, I know it's none of my business," she said, "but are you okay?" I plastered on my polite face. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why?" She hesitated. "It's just, Luke's been telling people you had a bit of a, breakdown, that you were unstable. I didn't really want to bring it up, but you seem normal." So, there it was. The word. I laughed, but it came out sharp. "I didn't have a breakdown," I said. "I had depression and I got help. That's not the same thing as, smashing windows." Her eyes widened. "He said you keyed his car," she blurted. "I what?" "He said you went psycho when he ended things and keyed his car and sent 100 emails. It didn't really match what I knew of you, so I thought I'd check." My stomach dropped. I'd done none of those things. I'd sent him one email about picking up my stuff, which he never answered, so I let Zara go get it. I didn't own a car, let alone a key that fit his. That was the first lie I heard about, but it wasn't the last. Through the grapevine, I heard that apparently I'd threatened to hurt myself if he left. Nope. That I'd shown up at his workplace screaming. Absolutely nope. That I'd stalked him by knowing what bars he went to. We had the same group of friends. Each time I felt this mix of fury and deep, deep shame. Even though I knew I hadn't done those things, part of me still felt like the fact I had a diagnosis and took meds somehow made his version more believable. Crazy by association with my own brain. I started keeping that little notes file again. Every time someone told me a new lie, I wrote it down. Not because I planned to use it, but because I needed to see the pattern in black and white. One entry: Luke told Josh I threatened to send his nudes to his mom if he broke up with me. I literally never had nudes of him. Another: apparently I begged his new girlfriend at a bar not to date him because he was mine. I have never met her. Ah, yes, the new girlfriend. The one person who mattered. I found out about Hannah the way everyone finds out anything now. Instagram. He posted a photo of them at the beach, his shaved head burnt at the top, her in a red one-piece, both of them laughing at something just off camera. The caption: "Life gets better when you meet someone who gets you." I blocked, unblocked, reblocked. I stalked her profile. She seemed nice, normal. Nurse, if her bio was accurate. Lots of photos with friends and dogs and her grandparents. The kind of girl his mom used to tell him he should end up with, back when we were still together. I felt sick, jealous, sad. But also, and I hate that this was my first thought, I wondered what he was telling her about me. I didn't have to wonder for long. About 3 months into their relationship, I got a message request in my other folder on Facebook. It was from a name I didn't recognize at first because she'd shortened it. "Hi," the message said. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I'm seeing Luke, and I just wanted to ask, did you really try to hurt yourself when he broke up with you? He said you did, and it kind of freaked me out. If this is out of line, I'm sorry. I work in mental health, and it didn't sit right with me." My hands went cold. I stared at the message for ages. I typed, deleted, retyped a dozen responses. Things like, "That is a lie," "He knows my history, and he's using it to control the narrative," and "He cheated on me and then told everyone I was crazy when I found out," and "Run." What I ended up sending was, "Hi, Hannah. No, I did not try to hurt myself when we broke up. I have depression, anxiety. I'm on medication and in therapy, but I have never used self-harm as a threat or manipulation. I'm sorry he told you that. That's all I really want to say. I don't want to get in the middle of your relationship. I wish you well. She replied quickly. Okay, thank you for answering. I'm sorry if that was weird. He just painted this picture of you as this, really unstable person, and I guess I wanted to check if I should be worried. I hope you're doing okay. I wrote back. You're not weird. It's okay to ask questions. For what it's worth, I don't think you should be worried about me. But I think you should pay attention to whether he lets you have your own opinion or tells you how to feel about people. That was a thing when we were together. She saw it. She didn't reply. I told my psychologist about it at our next session. She reached out, I said, then ghosted. Which I get. He probably told her I was trying to get into her head or something. How did it feel, getting that message? My psych asked. Like someone poured ice down my back, I said. Also, validating? Like, oh, he's running the same script. At least I know it wasn't just me he did this to. We talked a lot in those months about stories, how everyone tells themselves a story about who they are and who everyone else is. How some people will set themselves on fire before they admit their story isn't accurate. Luke's story was simple. I am a good guy who is a bit damaged and only ever hurt people by accident. Anytime someone is upset with me, it's because they're crazy, obsessed, too sensitive. When I broke that story by leaving, he didn't update the narrative. He just rewrote my character. Crazy ex is such an easy trope. People eat it up. It lets everyone keep their illusions. The thing about stories, though, is that sometimes they leak. A few months after the Hannah message, I was at my local cafe on a Saturday, headphones in, laptop open, pretending to work on a report, but actually just scrolling Reddit. Someone tapped my shoulder. I pulled out an earbud, looked up. It was Tom, the actual Tom, best mate Tom. Tom. Hey, he said, awkward smile. Mind if I... He gestured to the chair opposite. Every muscle in my body tensed. Sure, I said, because apparently I like to suffer. He sat, cleared his throat. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, he said. For what? For believing him, I guess, he said. About you. I mean, we're mates, you know? When someone you've known since high school tells you their girlfriend's gone off the rails, you take their side. But then, he trailed off. Then Hannah happened, I said. He nodded. Yeah, and suddenly, he's got another crazy girlfriend. Same shit. She's obsessed with where I am, she's overreacting, she's making things up. And you noticed the pattern, I said. He sighed. I should have noticed sooner, he said. Anyway, I'm not here to make you reassure me I'm a good guy. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I didn't question it when he was saying you were unstable. You weren't. You were pretty chill, actually, considering. You just didn't laugh at his crap as much as we did. Something in my chest loosened a little at that. Being believed, even retroactively, felt like someone opening a window in a stuffy room. We chatted a bit more. He told me Hannah and Luke were rocky, that Luke had, surprise, surprise, been messaging an ex behind her back, and when she confronted him, he told everyone she was paranoid and controlling. History repeats, Tom said, grim. I went home from that coffee with a buzzing brain. That night, I opened my notes app and scrolled through the list of lies. I realized something. I was never going to be able to fix my reputation with everyone. There would always be people who preferred the easier story, crazy ex versus good guy. That's neat, clean, requires no uncomfortable self-reflection. But maybe I didn't have to fix it with everyone. Maybe I just had to make sure the people who were being actively manipulated right now at least had access to the truth, even if they chose not to use it. Which brings us back to the email. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. I didn't drunkenly rage type at 2 a.m. I spent a couple of weeks drafting it in my head, then in a Google Doc. I asked myself what I would have wanted 3 years ago if some woman my ex had dated before me had reached out. I know myself. If she'd ranted and called him names, I probably would have just doubled down on my loyalty to him. If she'd bombarded me with every single horrible thing he'd ever done, I would have shut down. So I decided to keep it calm, factual, boring, almost. Let his own words do the work. I dug through old messages, screenshotted ones where he admitted to kissing the girl at the bar. It was just a stupid kiss, I was drunk. Ones where he referenced using my mental health against me. No one will believe you, you're on meds. Ones where he strategized his narrative. I just told Josh you flipped out so he'll back off. I blurred out other people's names where I could. I didn't need collateral damage. I pulled up email receipts from our couple's counseling where the subject line literally said session booking infidelity. I attached the invoice from the therapist that had couples session, Luke and Anna, in the header. Not because I thought Hannah would go, "Ah, yes, an invoice, proof positive," but because I wanted to show this wasn't some fantasy I'd invented. It had a paper trail. Then I wrote, "Hi, Hannah. I know it's been a while since you messaged me, and you may have blocked this email or decided you never want to hear from me again. If so, that's completely fair, and you can stop reading here. If you do keep reading, I promise I'm going to keep this as calm and factual as I can. I'm not writing this to win you over or to convince you to break up with Luke. What you do with this is entirely your choice. I'm writing because I found out, through mutual friends and through your own message to me months ago, that Luke has been telling you, and others, that I'm crazy, that I threatened self-harm, stalked him, keyed his car, etc. None of that is true. I do have diagnosed depression, anxiety, I'm on medication, I see a psychologist regularly. He knows this because I was open about it. What he's done, repeatedly, is use that information to make me sound unstable when his behavior is questioned. I've attached screenshots of some of our past conversations. You'll see. Him admitting to kissing someone while we were together. Him talking to a friend about spinning the story so people think I'm nuts. Him using my therapy, our medication, as a way to dismiss my concerns. I've also attached a couple of emails, receipts from the couple's counselor we saw after the cheating incident, just to show that did actually happen and wasn't something I made up, as I know he suggested. Again, I'm not asking you to take my side against his. I'm just asking that if you hear him call me crazy, you consider that maybe that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting in his story. When you messaged me before, you said you work in mental health. You know better than most that people with diagnoses are often painted as unreliable narrators of their own lives. That's part of why I've hesitated to say anything. I don't want to be the stereotype, but I also don't want to stay silent while someone else uses my history to discredit me and, potentially, to manipulate you. Whether you stay with him or not is none of my business. But if 10 months from now you find yourself being called crazy for having normal reactions to hurtful behavior, I want you to remember this email and know it's not just you. Take care, Anna. I read it about 10 times. I edited out anything that sounded remotely like name-calling. I deleted a whole paragraph about his childhood trauma because, frankly, that's his to disclose, not mine. Then, at 11:47 p.m. on a random Wednesday, I hit send. For about 5 minutes afterwards, I sat there staring at my inbox like it was going to self-destruct. My heart was going a million miles an hour. Noodle jumped up on my lap and kneaded my thigh, purring loudly, completely oblivious to the tiny grenade I just lobbed into Luke's carefully curated narrative. I half expected an immediate reply, or a bounce back, or something, but inboxes are not movie sets. Nothing happened. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, got into bed, stared at the ceiling. At 12:23 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Why the fuck would you email Hannah?" the text said. All caps, no punctuation, classic. My stomach flipped, but underneath it was this weird calm. I hadn't said anything that wasn't true. I hadn't threatened him. I'd just seed someone on his own lies. I didn't reply. 30 seconds later, my phone lit up with his name. I declined the call, put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sometime after 1 a.m., my brain finally let me sleep. In the morning, there were 7 missed calls, 12 texts. They ranged from rage, "You're actually insane, you know that?" to pleading, "Please don't ruin this for me, she's the best thing that's happened to me," to manipulation. This is why we could. Never work. You always have to make yourself the victim. I still didn't reply. I did, however, forward the messages to my email and then delete them from my phone. Therapist's suggestion from months ago. Keep evidence, but keep it somewhere you don't have to look at all the time. Hannah's response didn't come that day, or the next. I figured maybe she'd blocked me, or Luke had managed to spin it as my crazy ex trying to sabotage us. Then 3 days later, a new email pinged while I was at my desk at work. My heart did that stupid jump. The subject line, Re. I think you deserve the full story. My hands were suddenly clammy on the mouse. I clicked. Hi, Anna. Thank you for your email. I've read through what you sent, and I'm sorry you had to go to the trouble of collecting all of that. It must have been hard. I won't go into too much detail because this is all very fresh, but a lot of what you sent lined up with some things I'd already been feeling uneasy about. There were also some specific phrases in those screenshots that he had used with me, almost word for word. You're overreacting. You're making things up in your head. You know you're not well. You're catastrophizing. I challenged him about the crazy ex stuff. He denied some of it, minimized other parts, and then called you obsessed and vindictive for messaging me. That was pretty telling, honestly. I've told him I need space. I don't know yet what I'll ultimately decide, but I want you to know that I don't think you're crazy. At all. I think you've been through a lot and you've handled it with more grace than most. I'm sorry he used your mental health against you. That's really not okay. Please don't feel you have to reply. I just didn't want you to think your email went into a void. It didn't. Take care, Hannah. I sat there, in my depressing, ergonomic office chair, blinking at the screen until the words blurred. My chest felt weird. Not elated, exactly. Not vindicated in the petty, I was right way I'd been half ashamed to admit I wanted. It was more like someone had reached into my chest and gently unhooked a wire that had been looped too tight for too long. I sent the email to my personal account. Then I closed my work Outlook before I started crying in the open plan. Later, at home, with Noodle snoring beside me and a cup of tea I was actually drinking while it was still hot, I read it again. She doesn't think I'm crazy, I said out loud, just to hear it, which sounds silly because I know, rationally, that someone else's opinion doesn't override my own knowledge of my brain. But when you've spent years having your reality questioned, every little "I believe you" lands like something sacred. I didn't reply to her, not because I was trying to be mysterious, but because I meant what I said. What she chose to do with the information was her business. I didn't want to become another voice in her head telling her what to do. Over the next few weeks, I heard things through the usual grapevines. That Luke had taken some time off social. Translation, he archived all the couple photos. That he'd been going around saying his psycho ex had brainwashed Hannah. That he'd cried to Tom about how women always gang up on him. Tom texted me once, "For what it's worth, I'm not buying his story anymore. I think you did the right thing." I replied, "For what it's worth, I'm not organizing my morals around what's right for him anymore." My psychologist asked me how I felt about the fallout. Guilty, I admitted. And not guilty at the same time. Guilty because I know this will hurt him, and some warped part of me still hates the idea of causing him pain. Not guilty because they were his words. If they look bad, that's not because I'm crazy. It's because he said bad things. She nodded. "You forwarded consequences," she said. "You didn't create them." That sentence lives rent-free in my head now. I've had people ask me, my friends, Reddit strangers, if I did it for revenge or closure. Honestly, both. A little. I wanted him to feel, even briefly, the cold wash of, oh, other people can see through me. I wanted to know that my version of events wasn't going to die in my therapist's office and my notes app. But more than that, I wanted to talk to the one person whose opinion of me still kept me up at night. Me. Hitting send on that email, sitting with the discomfort, not backtracking when he freaked out, not apologizing for making a scene. All of that was me showing myself that I wasn't the unhinged villain I'd been painted as, that I could be angry and act on that anger without losing control, that I could tell the truth without exploding. My ex told people I was crazy. He still probably does. I can't control that. There will always be some circles where I'm the punchline in a story he tells to make himself look better. What I can control is who I let into my own head, whose voices I turn up the volume on. And now, when the word crazy pops up in my brain, it's a little softer. It sounds less like his voice and more like mine, laughing a bit, saying, "You sent one email with screenshots, babe. That's not crazy. That's just clicking forward."